I always thought, well, at least I wasn't doing what my mom was doing. But in that, I ended up not realizing I became so much worse in my own way. I was so focused on not becoming her, I became my own type of monster. I didn't realize like the effect I was having on my daughter or anything until like they told me she had drugs in her system.
Let's be honest about recovery.
The rewards, the challenges.
Let's talk about our failures.
We are flawed people, after all.
Let's challenge the stigmas that weigh us down.
Because while most of us are looked at,
Few of us are seen.
Let's talk about addiction.
And how Christ overcomes our weaknesses.
Because we are loved.
because we are loved.
Because we are loved.
We are loved.
We are
Because
loved.
we are loved.
Hi, my name is Hannah, and this is my story. I was stuck in an endless cycle of addiction and chaos and trying to hold on to this idea of control that I did not have. I had to completely lose control to gain control of my life. And if it wasn't for God and His grace, I wouldn't be where I am today.
Hey there, and welcome back to the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast. I'm Kathryn, and this is Paul. Today, we're going to be speaking with Hannah Straszheim. Hannah is from Daphne, Alabama. You may remember we actually had the privilege of speaking with Hannah's mother, Jennifer, on about our 19th episode. And so today, we're going to get to hear Hannah's story of her own journey of recovery. Thank you so much for coming.
Yes, I know. And actually, I'm one of those that needed to be reminded that your mom was on the show. And so your life, is it fair to say, kind of paralleled what your mom went through? Like, how did your journey start?
Well, my addiction started more when I was around 15. So my mom didn't go into addiction until she was later on in life or whatever. But I grew up around all addicts. Like my dad was an addict, his side of the family, and then my mom. So it was just something that was accustomed to that I thought then was normal, but really wasn't.
So that's an important piece of the puzzle for you. That was normalcy.
It was,
right? So how did you get introduced to it?
Well, we moved I was born in Rock Hill, South Carolina. That's where on my dad's side of the family is and stuff. And then we moved to Alabama. So when I started high school and stuff is when I started my own little journey, dabbling here and there. And then I met this guy, and he sold drugs, and he was 7 years older than me. And so that was a big part of me getting into it and stuff.
And was this guy older?
Yeah.
So was there kind of an infatuation, older guy, he's got money?
He reminded me a lot of my dad with the selling drugs and like how he acted and stuff. And so I just kind of gravitated towards that.
Okay. So let's go back a little bit. Okay. So you're born in South Carolina. How did you grow up? Did you live with both parents?
I lived with my grandparents a lot. Like if my mom and dad would be off doing whatever, mom would come around she would be there, but she wouldn't really be there. Right. You know what I'm saying? And my dad was always in and out of prison and stuff like that.
How old were you during these times?
It was really my whole life.
Okay.
Because we moved when I was 14. That's when we moved to Alabama. Okay. So up until
both
14,
your parents, you. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then moved to Alabama. You haven't started using yet, but your parents are.
Yeah, I mean, when I lived in South Carolina, I smoked weed and stuff, but I didn't start any hard drugs until I moved to Alabama, yeah.
All right.
But the introduction was there.
Yeah.
So in your world of childhood, growing up and surrounded by addicts, was home life just kind of chaos constantly?
Yeah, definitely chaos constantly. My dad, when I was younger, he kidnapped me one time, and police were always a part of our life, always coming to the house looking for him, and then just my mom going crazy and stuff and her addiction. So chaos was...
How old were you when he kidnapped you? Sorry, that's a...
I was 6.
And what was that? Was he trying to get at your mother, or was what?
I'm not really sure what the motive was, but I just know it happened.
Do you remember that?
I remember some of it. I remember the police coming and stuff like that at a gas station, and yeah.
Were you aware that you were being kidnapped at that?
No, not really. Not until the police showed up, and I was like, okay, so something's wrong.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
So chaos being the norm. I loved what you just said about what made you gravitate towards the boyfriend,
Mm-hmm.
right? You said he reminded you of your dad.
Yeah.
And look, I want to be very clear to both our listeners and you. When we talk about the dysfunction in homes and we're talking about people, we are not demonizing them. The reality is that these people, even if they've done demonic things, and I mean that figuratively and literally, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that they are just broken people the same way I am, the same way you are, the same way you all are. So understanding that, though, we really tend, and you use the word that I use with my clients all the time, we tend to gravitate towards what's familiar, right?
Sure.
And so, and then we call that comfort. We say, well, I'm comfortable here, right? But we don't really mean comfort. We mean I'm familiar here.
Yeah, used to it.
So, a la here comes Dad Jr. in some way, right? And so these familiarities, rather than being a red flag, become a pseudo comfort.
Yeah.
And so was it love at first sight kind of thing, or?
I thought I loved him, but like looking back, I know like it wasn't love.
Sure.
It was just my idea of what I wanted it to be. And I wanted to fix. That was a big thing with me, wanting to fix people and try to help people. And so I guess I thought if I could help him, how I couldn't help my dad or something like that, I could do something.
And this is when you were 14, 15?
I was 15 when I met him. He was 21.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did your grandmother, your mother, anybody have anything to say?
Well, at first I lied about how old he was.
Okay.
And so, but when...
I'm just thinking if I've got a 15-year-old and they bring home a 21-year-old, I'm going to have something to say.
Yeah, for sure. My grandparents...
No, it's not going to go over well at all.
Yeah, my grandparents did not like him, didn't want me seeing him, nothing like that. My mom, she didn't like it either, but I would also get stuff for her. So like, since he sold drugs or whatever, I could get drugs for her, and that kind of like made her...
She couldn't really argue with you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you, you did mention your grandparents. How did they handle all this? I mean, they didn't use drugs.
Yeah, no, they didn't use drugs.
So how did they react to your mother and they're trying to raise you?
Well, they tried their best. Like, they always tried to be supportive, but in a way they did kind of like enable a lot. Like what they thought was best, like just giving her what she needed or what she said she needed just to try to help, because they didn't really know how to deal with it or anything like that. So what they thought was helping was really enabling.
Yeah, they did the best that they could with what they knew. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm curious, Hannah, and don't let me take you anywhere you don't want to go here, but given the fact that you were raised in a chaotic, addicted home, were you ever put in jeopardy? Was your safety ever at risk? Was there, moments of potential harm there, right? Because I mean, we don't associate with necessarily the best behaving people when we're in our active addictions.
For sure. I mean, I would go with them on like drug deals and like they would have people around because when they were selling drugs. So there's always like
them as in your parents.
Yeah, as my parents and stuff. So there's always a risk of something happening. So yeah, or like them driving high with me in the back seat and stuff like that.
So inherently, it was there directly related to their use. Did you now? So I just asked you if you knew you'd been kidnapped, and because at 6 you may not have a content. You didn't until the police showed up. When you're being drug around on these deals that your parents are making, the purchasing, all that stuff, did you know what was going on, or was this just hey, I'm outing with my parents?
I knew, but like I didn't really see much wrong with it because that's all I knew. Like my uncles and everything too were all doing the same thing. But like it was more when I started in school and stuff and I started hanging out with other kids and like going to their house, I realized, okay, so this isn't right. This isn't normal. Like this isn't...
Not everybody's house
not everyone's
is like
doing
mine.
this. Yeah.
Well, and it makes sense if you grow up like that and that's all you see, it doesn't feel dangerous to you.
Yeah.
And I would think that hanging out with some people, while on one hand it's like, well, this is kind of nice, it's also, we get bored.
Yeah.
Because we are so used to chaos.
And like most of the kids I did hang out with was like kids of the other addicts that my parents would be around.
Right.
So it was all what we were all used to.
Right. Yeah, and that is the danger. What a great point, right? And sets you up for a high likelihood of dysfunctional relationship because a healthy relationship may seem boring.
Yeah.
Right?
Something's wrong with it.
Which is anything
Right.
but, right? I mean, healthy relationships should be same, we should have a thrill seeking kind of thing. There should be energy to it. But if you're raised in chaos, boy, that's you are already kind of predestined to.
Yep. And like I had a history of like, even after him, picking guys like that, guys who didn't treat me the best, or I felt like I should save or fix, and just usually most of them were all involved in drugs and stuff like that.
So while we're on this topic, just one, did you ever have, like in looking back, did you ever have what may have been, probably wouldn't know because it probably didn't go on long enough. Did you ever have a relationship that may have been healthy that you disposed of early on because you were bored?
Yeah, probably like didn't make it past like really the introductory and, talking stage, because I'd be like,
they're too nice.
Yeah, too nice.
They opened the door for me. Something's wrong. Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
In a really non-great way.
Yeah. Right. But it is so true.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's kind of like, we don't know at the time. You had no idea that you're just going after what's familiar and what you've been raised in. You just know that it felt right. As you said, as dysfunctional as it is, this is what I know.
Yeah.
And it also explains, if somebody had not grown up the way you had and they ended up in that relationship with him selling drugs, they're going to react a certain type of way. I don't think you were afraid.
Yeah.
You hadn't been taught to be afraid.
Yep. And with like the first guy, a lot of it, we had like trauma bond, because when I was with him, when I was 15, one of our friends committed suicide with us while we were in the hotel room. And 6 months after that, I got pregnant and had an abortion. So like, I just tried to stick with it because we both went through some terrible things together. So I thought, we could work through this, but really we were just throwing drugs on it. And
you were at a very young age to get into such a serious committed relationship.
Yeah. And he was way older. So he was ready for that. And I was just along with the ride.
Well, even if it's dysfunctional and chaotic and unsafe for you, at least it was constant.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot in your life had been constant.
Yeah.
So let's stick to this. It's, what is that? Better the
devil we know than the devil we don't.
Yeah. I'll keep this one.
I'd like to take a moment to recognize a major podcast sponsor. Today's episode is brought to you by America's Thrift Stores, your go-to option for decluttering and giving back. If you have a closet bursting at the seams or a garage that's seen better days, we've got the perfect solution for you.
That's right. America's Thrift Stores makes it easy to clear out the clutter and make a positive impact in your community. Whether you're cleaning out your wardrobe, downsizing your living space, or just looking to give back, America's Thrift Stores has you covered.
And here's the best part. You've got options. Schedule a hassle-free home pickup, drop off your items at one of their convenient donation sites, or swing by an America's Thrift Store to donate in person. No matter which way you choose, you're making a difference.
Absolutely. Every donation you make to America's Thrift Stores directly benefits charities in your area, such as the Home of Grace and other fantastic organizations dedicated to helping those in need.
For example, donations made to America's Thrift Stores in southern Mississippi help the Home of Grace provide support and assistance to individuals facing drug and alcohol addiction. Your contributions make a real impact on their mission to provide freedom from addiction through Christ-centered recovery. So not only are you decluttering your life, but you're also helping build a stronger and more supportive community.
It's truly a double blessing. So what are you waiting for? Clean out that closet, clear out that garage, and make a positive difference in your community by donating to America's Thrift Stores.
Visit America's Thrift Stores online to schedule a home pickup, locate a donation site near you, or get directions to one of their store locations.
America's Thrift Stores, where giving back never goes out of style.
What's interesting, though, and I used to say that we don't talk much about this, but as of late, we seem to have been talking a lot about the codependent side of addiction. Yeah. And what's interesting is that we typically look at it as exclusive, right? Like there's the addict, the dependent, and then there's the codependent enabler. But the reality is most addicts wrestle with both.
Yeah.
And you're really talking about that. You, in fact, used a very stereotypical phrase of a codependent. I'm a fixer.
Yeah.
Right? So what are we looking for a fixer? We're looking for the broken, right? We're looking for and sadly, when you can't fix them, how do you feel?
Like, it's out of your control. Like, and I was big on like thinking I had control, wanting to control things. And so if I felt like things weren't going what I was planning them to go, it would drive me crazy. It would drive me insane.
Did it ever feel like, because the danger here is that it feels like failure, right? Did you ever feel like you were failing your mission, so to speak? I'm overstating
I did
that.
it wrong. Something's wrong.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And therein is the danger, right? We identify with the outcome, not the input.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Well, and
wow.
also, I think when you said it in a roundabout way, if you could, I think that inner belief, if you could help them and fix them, then you'd be able to fix and help your dad. And no matter if our parents are dysfunctional, children want their parents.
Yeah.
Were you aware of that conscious? Thanks for reminding me. Were you aware of that desire consciously at a young age that you wanted to fix dad? Was that something?
Yeah, I mean, I always knew I wanted to help my parents. Like, I wanted to, especially like the older I got and the more I realized how crazy it all was and everything, I really wanted them to do better. I wanted to help them. Like, and when he would go off to prison or something like that, I always blame myself away. Like, well, maybe if I did this better or if I acted a certain way, my mom would stay, my dad would stay, stuff like that.
Did you visit him in prison?
A few times. Yeah, we did.
Did they ever make you feel that way? Like overtly? I know covertly you took that on. You said, if I only had done this better. But did they ever reinforce that feeling?
No, like they never did anything to like make me feel that way. It was more of like, other people's parents are sticking around, why can't mine type thing. Yeah.
Wouldn't that go back to feeling like something was wrong with you? Yeah. You couldn't fix the guys, you couldn't fix that relationship, and you couldn't fix your parents. So ultimately...
Hannah, that's just such another place where just, I think a snapshot is necessary for even the listeners, is that's really the heartbreak for kids that grow up in situations like this, is that it doesn't have to be overt. A child innately sees the world as responding to them. Yeah. Which means anything that happens is their fault. And so in their minds. And so that's just really profoundly sad to me. And I'm so sorry you went through that. But things obviously ended well for both sides. Well, I know it ended well for you and your mother. Did your dad ever find his way out of?
He committed suicide.
Okay.
Yeah, he committed suicide when he was in jail.
Okay.
How old were you then, Hannah?
I was 16.
What was that like for you?
I remember when I got the call, like I was in shock because I was with the boyfriend at the time, and mom was like, you need to come home right now. And I thought, oh, she's just tripping or whatever. But when I get there, she tells me, your dad's gone. And I was like, what? What do you mean? I know he's locked up, but what happened? And then so I called back home, and my cousin answers the phone. And then I hear my nanny screaming in the background. She also committed suicide. That's my dad's mom. She committed suicide a year after. But I heard her screaming in the background, and then my cousin was saying, it's true. He called him Bubba, and he was like, Bubba's gone. And then I didn't cry or nothing. I was just like, okay. I didn't really know what to feel.
I would say that you shelved it immediately.
Yeah.
That would have been a lot. You had spent a good part of your life wanting to fix your parents. And the finality of I don't know that a 16-year-old, I don't know that I'm 43 and I could have wrapped my head around that.
Yeah. It was definitely hard.
Kathryn just put it as you shelved it. Would you say that was true back then? And certainly this was maybe the most intense emotion that could have been there. By this time, are you fairly proficient at shelving emotions?
Oh, yeah, I'm a good avoider. Yeah. Very good avoider. Yeah.
So is that still current today?
Yeah, but I'm working on it. I'm working on being more like open and honest. I could do outpatient at the Home of Grace, and like we do individual therapy and group therapy. Right. So I try to be more transparent and stuff I'm going through and talking more about it and stuff.
Well, and your willingness to do what you're doing is evidence of that. But
Yeah.
but again, another sad byproduct, right, of being raised in chaos is we do learn to flatline emotionally, right? Because you're holding your cards close to your vest, right? It's not only is it vulnerable, which can be a good thing, vulnerability can be a good thing, but it can be a dangerous vulnerability in chaos to reveal how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Did you ever have those moments where your feelings were, I don't know how to ask this, so maybe you can soften the edges here, but held against you, so to speak? Like if you had...
Yeah, like in past relationships or whatever, like if I was vulnerable or talked about it, I felt like it would get used against me in a sort of way. So I tried to like just kept it to myself. And I always felt like I can deal with it. I've been through this much. I can just push through it. I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, and I think also the lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's not really one that talks a whole lot or encourages showing your feelings or being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And it feels completely foreign to start realizing that Brene Brown talks about how vulnerability may be seen as a weakness, but it's actually a strength.
Yeah.
And when you're living that lifestyle and you've been in it for so long, since such a young age, that if you talk about feelings in that way, you are weak.
Yeah.
And you're giving somebody something to use against you. Then you get into recovery and you start doing this process that you're clearly still invested in. Then it's like, well, no, now you got to get uncomfortable that you use a lot to say, this is how I'm feeling, and trust that it's not going to be used against you.
Yeah.
And that I would be scared. I think I would be afraid.
So were drugs and alcohol then kind of a means for you then to deal with your dad's passing?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Shortly after he passed, I ended up getting sent off to Juvenile Rehab. It was called the START program because I got arrested, got put on probation, was messing up.
This was when you were 16?
Yeah, when I was 16. And they sent me off to the START program. I didn't want it then. I didn't want to stay clean or anything. So I just did the time, got out. But during that time, my mom went to the Home of Grace because they told her, if you don't get help, then Hannah can't come home. And I remember when they told me that, I was like, I'm about to do juvenile life. I didn't think my mom was ever going to.
Really?
Yeah. I just sat there and I was like, okay, I'm going to be here for a good while because I didn't think she would get clean. Like it was not something that I ever thought would happen.
Well, and you had never seen her be willing to do something. Yeah. She had never gotten to that point.
Yep. But she did. She
went desperation. Yeah.
And got clean, and she's been clean since.
So that was 6 years, 5 years, five and a half? Okay.
Yep.
And so how long were you in that program?
I was there I sat in JDC for about a month, and then I was there for 3 months, so altogether 4 months. And then I got out in December while my mom was at the Home of Grace, went back to the same guy, doing the same things, got on heroin, and then I got in trouble again. I was out for like a month, and then I got sent to Mount Meigs.
What is that?
It's it's at a juvenile prison. That's what they call it, the juvenile prison, Mount Meigs. And I was at a program called ROP in the...
What was your offense? Selling or...
when I first got arrested, it was possession. And then the second time, they came and searched my house, and they found a safe with drugs in it. So selling. And then the third time was a probation violation.
Okay.
And you're still under 18?
Yeah. I was 17. And then when I got out of Mount Meigs when I turned 18. And then after a week after that, I got off probation.
So I was asking you, if you'd use drugs and alcohol to cope with your dad's passing, and then you kind of said for sure, and then that led to the first treatment?
Yeah, because I was using drugs before my dad passed, but after is when I started with fentanyl and heavy on Xanax and stuff like that. And so it just got real out of control. And then we got pulled over and arrested, and then I got put on probation. And my probation officer, Miss Carly Rowley, and my drug counselor, Melissa, they stepped in a lot with us and helped out a lot. They helped get my mom into treatment. And they were always just, even in the darkness, those were people that I could have to bring me towards the light. Like they were always there for me.
So how long did this relationship that's sort of floating around in the background persist? Was that through all 3 treatments, or how long did...
When I went to the START program and got out, that was really so it was about 2 years altogether, but after that is when it stopped. When I got out and
just
got sent off to Mount Megs.
Contact, just done.
Just done. Because he got sent to prison, I got sent to Mount Megs, and then after that I was like, okay, I'm done with it.
All right. And so you got out of were these like 12-step programs just for kids? Was there counseling?
The START program had counseling. It was focused on addiction and stuff, but they didn't do like 12-step or anything like that. Mount Megs is more of a behavioral thing. So like you had a counselor and they would talk a little bit about it, but it was more like
boot camp?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. And you were there for 3 months?
No, I was at Mount Megs for 6 months. Yeah, 6 months.
Just until you turned 18?
Yeah.
So you aged 18. Out?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yep.
So the first treatment you went to, you were pretty upfront and clear. I wasn't ready for it. I just was doing my time. Was that true of the second as well? Or was there some inkling here that, maybe?
I realized like I did have a problem, but I still wasn't ready to really stop it. I was 18. I was like, once I age out, get off probation, I'll just smoke a little weed. I won't do all the hard stuff again, but that did not turn out how I planned it.
Well, and I think it's also goes back to the lifestyle.
Yeah.
I've heard it said that a sentence is nothing. You kind of expect it it's like this is just what I got to do day for day. I'm flat timing out and I'll be good. And you plan your probation. Like that is literally all y'all know. Mm-hmm. And you had to have expected it to come sooner or later because I'm sure people around you were going to jail too.
Yeah.
And you'd grown up like that.
Mm-hmm.
So was that second treatment, though, because you used a term there, problem, was that second treatment the first time you were able to say, this is a problem?
Yeah. I mean, when I went to the START program or whatever, I mean, I was 16 years old doing heroin, fentanyl. So, like, I knew to a degree, like, that's not okay, that I couldn't control it, but it didn't really matter to me then.
Right.
And then the second time, I was like, I've never overdosed or anything like that. So I would do like, well, at least it's not this, or at least this hasn't happened. So I had an idea that I had control over it.
Right. Okay.
Let me capture that phrase because I thought I heard in your intro and I loved it the way you were. I wrote it down. You worded it this way. You said that you had to break away from the idea of control that I had. And then you went on to say you had to lose control to gain it. Can you talk a little bit about that? What did that?
Well, so I always had like, as long as I didn't end up like my mom, or as long as I didn't end up like this in my addiction. And when I had my daughter, so what got me clean was I got arrested because my daughter got out of the house and she had drugs in her system. And I went to jail and stuff. And I remember sitting there and just being like, this is completely out of control. Like, I can't believe this happened. And I always thought, well, at least I wasn't doing what my mom was doing. But in that, I ended up not realizing I became so much worse in my own way. So I was so focused on not becoming her, I became my own type of monster. And I didn't realize like the effect I was having on my daughter or anything until like they told me she had drugs in her system. So after that,
how old was she?
She was 2 at the time.
And how did she get drugs in her? She just found it? And,
it just got into her system somehow. I'm not sure exactly how, but she got out and then the police came and then all that happened. I went to jail. Her father went to jail. And while I was there, I was like, I've got to get help. Like, this is not okay. This is not what I want for myself or Sophia or anything like that. Yeah. And then so I went to the Home of Grace.
And was that the third treatment?
Yeah, this is the third treatment. And when I went there, I knew that I had to change and that I wanted to change. I didn't want to keep the cycle of, I didn't want Sophia to think of me like, why couldn't I help my mom?
Why wasn't she enough?
Yeah, exactly. And so I got really vulnerable while I was there. And that's, like she said, hard for me. And I had to really sit with myself and it sucked, but it was worth it. It was worth it for sure.
I mean, that's honest though. It does. Yeah. It's like, oh, this is me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me get to know this one and help fix her a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, we were just talking to a gentleman in our last podcast who talked about a treatment he went through, and he said, I got honest, but I didn't get fully honest. I held a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
This last treatment, you said I got vulnerable. Do you feel like you left it all on the table then?
Oh, I left it all on the table.
Good for you.
All of it. And I chose to continue with outpatient and stuff, so that way I can keep continuing that too. Because I went to the grad dorms. I was at Home of Grace altogether about 9-10 months, something like that. And then I left, and I didn't do anything at first. I didn't do any other programs or any outpatient or anything like that. But I've been dealing with DHR and getting my daughter back and everything, which I'm in the process of doing, of getting her back. I'm starting to get her unsupervised and everything. And so I was like, well, I need to do something to help continue, so that way I stay doing good.
Yeah.
Right.
And then so I decided to do outpatient so I could continue that.
And currently, your mom has
Sophia, yeah.
And if she hadn't have done her journey and gone through, then she would be in no way, shape, or form able to be the grandmother in a way that she wasn't able to be the mom.
And I'm so grateful for that. And seeing her with Sophia and stuff like that, even though she couldn't be that for me, it really does heal me. It does. It helps.
Ooh. Can you talk a little bit about the process of getting vulnerable, right? Because that, I think, for maybe even people listening who are considering, right, that has to be terrifying.
Yeah.
Right?
It's scary.
What was scary about it, and how did you overcome that fear and step into it?
It was really more scary of revealing myself to myself. Because I was just always pushing through. I never really got the time to know who I was, and healing all the trauma and everything. I know a lot of people have been through hard stuff too. And so I had to realize you don't have to be what you went through. You don't have to be stuck in that environment. And that was a big thing for me. So I was just if you want to get better, you have to get honest. Because one thing that my old drug counselor when I was a teenager, Miss Melissa, used to always say, you're only as sick as your secrets.
Amen.
Yeah. So I was just got to lay it all out. And my counselor, Shannon, she's really good at getting stuff out of you too. She's really good at that. And just honestly knowing I was in an environment where I was safe and I wouldn't be judged for what I did or anything like that. And it was just really more facing myself that was so scary.
Do you think it helped at all knowing that the mom you had never had growing up, that she got honest, got vulnerable, and got her life together, going through that program that now you were going through? And if it could do it for her,
it can do it for
maybe
me.
It can do it for you. Do you think that you had that thought?
Oh, yeah, for sure. If it worked for her, I know it could work for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just love how that followed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't mean to beat this dead horse, but I do think it's so important that people hear this. So how did you feel on the other side of that fear? And I know this is not this is a story that the last chapter hasn't been written yet, right?
Yeah.
You're still doing it.
I'm still doing it, yeah.
But having just engaged that process and laid it all out on the table, how did you feel? How are you feeling doing that?
The weight of the world's off my shoulders.
Amen.
Because it would be so heavy just holding it in and just walking around and not even trying to heal myself, but working on myself is honestly the best thing I've ever done. Not even just for me, just for my family, my daughter, and it changes how you interact with people, how you feel about people. And a big thing I had to learn was with other people don't really treat you how they feel about you. It's how they feel about themselves. So just being able to be someone to help other people, getting my friends into treatment and being someone that can talk to them. I've had people reach out to me, seeing what I'm walking through and ask me questions and want to do it themselves. And that feels good, being able to be that for someone.
Yeah. So there is, if you don't mind me saying, we're gonna tip into a little bit of here.
Okay.
I love that. In fact, that answer should be on a billboard somewhere. But for somebody like yourself, there is a hidden danger in the end piece of that answer. What might that be?
To be someone to help others.
Why might that be the hidden danger for you?
Because some people, me, myself, I know I could get too involved in trying to help someone and take it on more than I'm taking on myself, but you have to set firm boundaries with it. That's what I've gotten good at, boundaries with helping people. Like, I can help you to a certain degree, but not to where it puts me at risk.
Yeah.
Because I've got to look out for me at the end of the day.
And they have to do the footwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I can give you all the tools, I can give you the resources, but you have to be the one to want to do it.
And make the call.
Mm-hmm.
And you learned that.
I did learn that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm hearing here is a really healthy position. So the reason I said there's this hidden danger is because you self-identified as a fixer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So whenever you have this opportunity to help, it's both an opportunity and a potential disaster.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
But what you just said there really is evidence of your growth, because the cure for being a codependent, right? If any of clients I've worked with are watching this, they're going to roll their eyes, because I always talk about a pendulum, right?
Yeah.
About how we're either on one extreme or the other. And so the cure for being over here is a codependent, where I'm identifying with the outcome. In other words, if you do get well, I can feel good about myself. If you don't get well, I feel horrible about myself, right? That where I'm identifying with that. The cure is not what many people do, and that's come over here and just say, screw everybody else, then I'm not going to worry. That's all me, all me. That's not the answer. The answer is what you just talked about. Mm-hmm. It's kind of finding that middle ground, right? Where I can help, but I can detach from identifying myself with the outcome.
Being able to recognize when helping hurts.
Yeah.
And now you have to do it.
And yes, and you know, the main ingredient that you just threw in there was firm boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, you have really, so tell me, because this is a huge amount of growth we're listening to, right?
Yeah.
What were some of your aha moments along this journey? I mean,
well, with my mom, we are just alike. We are very similar. And so we can butt heads a lot. And she sometimes will try to not take over my recovery, but because she's been through it and she knows me, she'll feel like what she thinks I need to do. And a big aha moment was when I was like, no, this is my walk. You can put your input. You can be there for me, but you're not my therapist. You're not my sponsor. You can just be my mom.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah. Wow.
How did she receive it?
At first, she was like, excuse me? She's so used to we do talk about everything, but there had to be like a boundary in that, like, this is my walk, and a lot of my trauma did stem from you, and I don't want to make you feel bad about it, because that's not what I'm trying to do. It's just some things I can't talk to you about with that, because it's biased and it's what we went through, and I need to have someone else to talk to about it. And so at first she didn't really like it, because she was like, well, you can talk to me about anything. Like, I know I did this and that. And I was like, yeah, I understand. And it's not me trying to bash you for anything, because I forgive you, because that's not who you are anymore. So that was just a big thing, but she agreed to it, and she was like, you're right. You got to.
I would think at the end it took a burden that she might not have known that she was holding.
For sure.
Well,
I
you're
think
both
so
fixers.
Too. Yeah.
Right?
Fixers.
Yeah.
This isn't on me. Whether you make it or don't, Hannah isn't on her. And I think she had to realize that.
Yeah.
Same as it goes for you and her.
Mm-hmm.
So you just talked about forgiveness, another profoundly powerful tool in recovery, and something that we haven't talked about overtly yet with you, and that is the Christian walk. Mm-hmm. So how does this parallel? Do you consider yourself as somebody who had always been a believer, or was there just
I knew of God, but I didn't ever really have a relationship with them. Because when I was younger, I went to this church, and they had this little group for girls or whatever that I used to go to. But how I was introduced to other Christians and how they acted just kind of pushed me off from it. Because I remember wanting to hang out with this one little girl one time, but they all knew my dad and stuff like that. And my dad went to my old elementary school and stole a bunch of the TVs. And so that was a whole thing. And I remember her saying, you're going to end up just like your dad. You can't be around my daughter and stuff. And so I was like,
if that's a Christian, I don't want any part of that.
And so and then when my mom went to the Home of Grace, she tried to take me to church with her, but I still had that reservation.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it really took me having to go through my own stuff to get my own relationship with God and how I understand him and how we talk and everything and not what other people portray him as.
So what did that journey look like?
It was hard at first because I was angry at God for a long time. Like, why did you allow these things to happen? You're supposed to be so great and such a protector, but you allowed me to go through these things. And it just took, he knew what I was going to go through, and he knew I was prepared for it. I was built for it, that he was going to use that for greater good. And I just had to start trusting in that and talking to him more and just being more vulnerable with him and just realize he is my father. Like, he is a father to me. And that was another thing too. Like, everyone would say, God's your father. And I was like, I have a father. And so it was like a hard thing for me to do because I had like this misconstrued idea of a father.
Right.
And so it just took a lot of inner work for me to be able to get that relationship with God myself.
Real surrender and trust.
Where do you feel like that's at today?
Really good.
Yeah?
Yeah, really good. God, if it wasn't for him, I would not be where I am today for sure.
Yeah. You know, so many good things in what you just said there. God can handle our anger, especially, you know, listen, I'm just going to shoot from the hip here. I don't, you know, soften this, if you will, but especially I think when we don't necessarily know him, right? He's immensely patient when we do, and he's immensely maybe tenfold more when we don't.
Yeah.
And so I love that your, you know, journey took you through. All I can think of is, and I'd love to hear about that, is just this came to some deeper understanding the way you identify him as your dad now, or your, right? I mean, it's really beautiful. So, you know, I'm super excited about that part of what happened in your walk. Right.
Well, and I like how you pointed out he already knew all of it. I think it's hard for us to understand. He knows it all. It's not, we know that, but he wants us to give it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also like your wording of that thing. Yeah, you know, that he knew I was going to go through it. He didn't put me through it. He just knew that it was coming, right?
And that you could do it.
Yeah. I could go through it and get through it on the other end.
Yeah, and grow through it, right? Maybe that's even the most important thing, is that it's not meaningless. It's not just, hey, I made it through. We actually make it through stronger. We actually grow through that process. And it brought you to where you are today, which by all appearances is a pretty amazing place. Yeah. Right? So what do you do now? Like, what does your life look like in terms of
I work a lot. I do work a lot. And I'm in the process of getting my daughter back like full time. So we're starting to do it the unsupervised and everything. And then I'll be able to her back with me completely and DHR out of the picture and everything. So that's been a blessing. And I've just been able to live life without the worry about like drug tests or like drugs or anything. Like, it takes off a big weight, because with DHR for a while, process with DHR is so slow. And we went through a bunch of caseworkers and no one was calling me, letting me know anything. So I started doing everything on my own. I started taking my own drug tests, going and doing everything, because I was like, y'all are going to have a record of this. Y'all are going to see that I'm doing what needs to be done. And so finally, the state got involved with our case and appointed us a new caseworker, and she's been amazing. She's been pushing stuff along. And we got with her last month, and now the goal is within 3 months for me to have Sophia back.
Before we go any further, let's take a minute to address the man or the woman listening to today's episode and wishing for a better life. Or maybe addiction has completely overtaken a family member or a friend.
You are not alone. As you may know, the Jesus Loves Addicts podcast is produced by the Home of Grace, a Christ-centered addiction recovery program in South Mississippi with over 60 years of experience.
The Home of Grace has residential programs ranging from 30 days to 12 months. With 2 separate campuses for men and women, they are fully staffed with caring individuals who want nothing more than to guide you to a life of recovery.
Services include individual and group counseling, marriage and family counseling, classes, workshops, GED, and workforce training, all grounded in biblical principles.
And because of donations from the community, the cost of the program is incredibly affordable.
Thousands of alumni from across the country can tell you there is no other program in the world quite like the Home of Grace.
If you want to start a new path to recovery, don't wait. Speak with an admission specialist today. Visit homeofgrace.org or call 833-55-GRACE to talk with someone.
That's 833-55-GRACE. Call the Home of Grace today. So let me ask you a twofold question, right?
Okay.
So you're young 20s, right? And so in your past treatments, one of the things you said is you always went back to the old environment, right?
Yeah.
You got out of and went back to the old environment. Has that happened this time is question one. So you didn't. So what does the new environment look like? And that's not the second question either. So I lied. What is the new environment? What did you come out of treatment and go to this time?
I went and got my own place. And I did start seeing someone, but completely different from the other guys I've ever been with. And at first it was an adjustment because I was so used to chaos and everything. And this one respects boundaries and stuff like that. So like if I ask him like, hey, I need a minute, I need to be left alone. And he's like, okay. At first I was like, okay, where's the arguing? Where's the screaming?
Yes, and it didn't come.
And so I was like, okay. And I've talked to my counselor about this where I've caught myself being the toxic person because I'm not used to healthy relationships and stuff like that.
As in the one that will create the chaos if it's not
exactly,
there.
because I'm so used to it. Like we've spoke about, chaos is familiar to me. So without even me knowing it, I tried to create it. And so I've just had to work on that a lot. And he's very patient with me. He's very patient because he knows about my addiction and everything I went through. And he was an addict himself. He's been clean for 5 years, so he understands. And I've just been doing the mom thing, just finding myself as a mom and not who I was in addiction as a mom, because it's two completely different people. And how I handle stuff and being able to be there for Sophia and not be like in a haze or not being able to really be there. It's just, I'm someone I would have felt safe with as a kid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What a great statement.
Yeah.
Right?
Could you say that again? Please?
It's like, and I came to that revelation not too long ago because I was like sitting there thinking, and I was thinking about the past and everything and how I would have wanted someone like me when I was a kid. And that felt really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you say that to your mom? I have to ask that. Did you say that to your mom?
I haven't said that to my mom now.
You should tell her that.
I should.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will. I'll call her after this and tell her.
So here's my second question, because I think you're in a unique position to speak to the younger person out there, right?
Okay.
And oftentimes one of their fears is, what does fun look like on the other side of recovery, right? Oh my gosh, everything's associated with this. You're 20-something. What does fun look like for you?
Well, I'm more of a homebody. Like, I like being at home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I do, like, sometimes go to, like, events with, like, testimonies on the lawn or stuff with church and stuff when I'm not working. But our addiction and stuff, that wasn't fun. Like, yeah, you went to bars, you partied and stuff like that. But when you step out of that and look back into it, what was fun about it? What was fun about getting so belligerent or on your butt? Like, none of that was actually fun. And the day after, being hungover and stuff, that's not fun. Like, fun to me now is going to the beach or doing stuff with my daughter or just spending time with my family and, like, actually being able to be present. That stuff's fun to me.
Oof.
Well, it sounds like you've learned, in recovery, you hear play the tape all the way through. And that also means looking backwards with, like, clear eyes on what it actually looked like. And sounds like you've learned to do that. Amen. And I would say your friendships today have got to be, they have to look completely different.
Completely different.
Tell me about that.
Well, because, friendships and addiction, like, they're not really true friendships because, like, you're all drowning and not being able to pull each other up. And so there's, like, backstabbing, robbing, and, like, taking stuff from each other because you want to get high. That's all you're worried about. And now being able to, like, talk to a friend and be genuine in conversations and not have any underlying motives or anything like that, being able to trust them, that's a really good feeling.
Yeah. What I loved about your answer, you put in there, to be present is fun with me now. And, because if you're honest about addiction, it actually probably diluted anything that you did that was fun.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Immensely. And now to be present in those things, to be present when I'm at the beach, to be present when I'm at the bowling alley, to be present when I'm skydiving, to be present.
Yeah.
Right?
Present
Anything.
with my daughter.
I mean,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, I
exactly.
mean, just so much more to be gained and such a richer experience. Yeah. Wow. So I'm ready to be your client. Yeah, lots of wisdom in such a short journey, man. Wow.
So
Good
I want to
stuff.
ask about grief process that we don't really talk enough about. But I know that for you, that had to be the grieve and let it go.
Yeah.
And processing through the loss of your dad. And what did that look like for you?
A lot of anger. A lot of anger and like wondering why, because like he didn't tell anyone why he committed suicide. I mean, but to a degree, I know he was going through withdrawals. He was in jail. He knew he was going to be gone for a very long time because he was already on parole and he got caught with a lot of stuff and stolen vehicle and all the things.
So just hopeless.
Yeah, he was hopeless at that point. And he never believed in God at all. He talked about all the time how he didn't believe in a God and everything like that. So it took really having for me to understand he was broken too.
Yeah.
And he couldn't find his way out of that brokenness. And so I had to come to terms with the fact that he couldn't do that. He tried. He did try his hardest, but that's all he knew too. He grew up in the addiction and everything with his dad.
Yeah, that's right. You said his side of the family was all addicts.
That's all he knew and everything. And so I just had to really come to terms with the fact that he lost his battle to it. But that's okay because not everyone makes it out, but you could turn that into something greater. You can turn that into, instead of holding on to it like, why did this happen, and still being so angry about it, you could use it to help other people.
Yeah.
I really am kind of taken aback at, and maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe this is my own stereotype, but and I don't want to repeat this a ton, but Hannah, there really is a lot of wisdom in this coming from you. And again, maybe because I'm an old fogey, it seems like it shouldn't be there yet, right? But but that's God, isn't it? I mean, he can
for sure.
He can pick us up wherever we are and instill in us whatever he wants. And in you, he has instilled a lot of really wise lessons along the way. My goodness. Wish I had some of that at 23. So, but you know, I think for me, the reason I captured that piece of it is because I think young people, if I were to, again, stereotype to a degree, this isn't true across the board, but I think young people, by and large, more than those who have experienced more pain, have the most difficulty in treatment, the most difficulty accepting that change has to happen. Would you say that's?
Yeah, most definitely, for sure.
Well, and to piggyback on that, it's also with the age that I've seen a lot in treatment is it's unable to come to that surrender and accepting that they may not have forever.
Yeah.
And they don't think that, you know, what am I trying to say? They may have that one more time. They may be able to do this, and they're not willing to look at those old friendships and let go of them. They want to hold on to that because then they're a sellout if they don't.
Well, and I think we also, you know, we're not just addicted to the drug, the alcohol, the sex, the gambling, whatever it may be. You become addicted to the chaos, right?
The lifestyle.
And you've, which is exactly, you've talked about the lifestyle, but that chaotic piece of it. And so, there's something about the whirlwind of that keeps sucking us back. Wow. I think this is, I'm super grateful that you're here today as a young person, able to reach that audience. And so by way of kind of wrapping things up, I really want to say to anybody who might be listening, who is at that stage, you know, you really have hurt enough. If you'll allow yourself that realization, if you'll allow yourself to call this the end of the road, right? You hear a lot about having to hit bottom, but look, the ultimate bottom of addiction is death. So clearly we don't all need to hit that bottom, or none of us would be here to talk about it. So your bottom can be wherever you say enough is enough. And that's true if you're 18 or if you're 80. And Hannah, you've been such a great example of what it really takes to turn is readiness. And you were ready.
Definitely ready.
And I am hoping that for many out there listening, maybe today, especially the younger ones, that you're ready. Maybe that's certainly my prayer. I'd say that's Jesus Loves Addicts' prayer for you, is that you're ready. And so, guys, I hope you find immense hope in this discussion with Hannah. Thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you
for being here and telling your story. And
I want to say I'm really, really proud of you.
Yeah.
And so grateful.
I know. Yeah. It's hard not to switch into dad role and just want to,
it's
exactly.
just like, very, especially after I know your mom and we got to meet with her and just actually, we heard part of your story, but so much of hers.
Yeah.
And then to get to see this product of it.
Yeah.
And, this was a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And guys, this really is the good life. It really is, right? And no, I didn't say perfect, and I didn't say perfect for an intentional reason. There's no perfect this side of heaven, but it is the good life. So
and worth it.
Yeah. Come on, dip your toe in the water. Hey, until next week, Jesus Loves Addicts. Look forward to seeing you again. Check us out, JesusLovesAddicts.com. Leave your story. Give us some comments. We'd love to hear from you. Take care.